are now locked in and listening to The Issue.
This guy is a franchise quarterback, and no, I don't want to hear any pushback on that.
It feels like a top 10 roster to me. It feels like it can win a championship.
This is The Issue.
Yo, what's up? We are back. It is The Issue, Thursday, August 31st, end of the month. Next episode, we will be talking Week 1 predictions in the NFL. All right, it is a huge week here on the show. Pumped. We are done with divisional predictions. So this week we will have our playoff predictions, Super Bowl bubble, and then we will give you our predicted Super Bowl champions. Guys, we've made it.
I didn't even know there were 31 days in August.
Yeah,
there are. I had to check to make sure you weren't lying.
There are, in fact, 31 days in August. The show news keeps rolling out. So, guys, we can announce today the Issue podcast will be live every Sunday. We will be streaming no matter when it'll be whenever the Steeler game is. So, 1 o'clock game, catch us for the pregame show, live reaction watch party, and then obviously a little post-game show to wrap up. That will be at Sensi's Cranberry.
I was just going to say, you can tell them where? Are we just going to have them guess,
No.
Get a compass out, good luck.
We'll throw up some directions on the website. We're really pumped for it. Taking the show live is kind of our next step that we've always wanted to do.
I'll tell you what, Monday night, Cleveland that's going to be a fun one.
Oh, that's going to be really fun.
That's going to be good.
The schedule looks pretty good, and we are just taking steps forward here on the show. Today is going to be a good one. So we're going to start with your rant on college football and the NFL, get into a little hits and misses to finish out the first segment. Into the second, we will have our divisional revisions. So we're going to go through, some of those divisions we've done 8 weeks ago. The NFC West was 8 weeks ago. A lot has changed. Go back, make a couple of adjustments. Nothing major, but, fix things that need fixed before the season starts up. And then we will have Mike Nicastro joining us at the end of the second segment, kind of talk a little bit of Steelers football, projecting what he thinks the NFL could look like this year. They do a great job over there. It's the Sick Podcast. Go check it out if you haven't. And then in the third segment, playoff predictions, Super Bowl prediction, and the news to close things out. But this is one of the shows that we get really excited for, right? Because next week we start predicting actual games in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm locked in on the Steelers schedule right now because we're talking, obviously about doing the watch party and everything like that. And I'm looking, I feel like they don't have that many Sunday 1 o'clock games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games. They have 2 TBDs, so they could end up being it. But right now they only have 8, Sunday 1 o'clock games. They have a lot of, 4:30 we have the Bengals. 4:05 we're in Seattle.
Yeah.
A lot of prime times, right? We got the Titans in prime time.
Well, we have 2 Thursday
nights. The Raiders
nights.
In prime time. The Browns in prime time.
There are 2 Thursday nights? I think there's 2. I think the Titans, and I think New England's a Thursday.
New England's a Thursday as well. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's fascinating to me. But anyway, thank you guys for listening. We appreciate it. Listening, watching, whatever. And like you said, whenever we do go live, we'll be on, YouTube and on pretty much everything you can go live on.
YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all that stuff. And then trying to figure out a way to do it through iHeart as well. Go check us out. Next week is the premiere week where our episodes will be available on iHeartRadio.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the NFL and our predictions because, like we said, we're going to be doing some revisions, playoff predictions. Right? We've kind of been writing in pencil up until this point. We have to kind of pen in our answers, right? Lock it in before the season starts, in a sense. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, wow, we have very little awful teams in the NFL. And then I also watched some Week 0 college football, which doesn't really make a ton of sense. We're going to play a Week 0 before Week. I don't know. It's weird to me. Why don't we just call it Week 1? But whatever. And good God, there's some bad teams in college, really bad teams in college football. And to me, that's the huge difference, right? Because college football has the urgency, it has the passion, it has the money with the boosters. Now, is it a $10 billion business like the NFL is? Not quite, but it's got plenty of funding, plenty of money. It has the stars, Caleb Williams and Drake May, and you might think they're not as big as Mahomes, but in terms of the scale of the sport, they have huge stars. But the problem is it has absolutely zero parity. And, maybe the occasional upset here and there. And, but at the end of the day, if I put a bet slip together for Week 0, I'd have hit it all down the line. I'd have smacked every single game. And I don't even bet college football. That's not really my bag, NFL is more where I, have some success. So now in contrast, week to week, the NFL has wild parity. Wild parity. Season long, we can debate that, right? I think at the end of the day, like, there's 7 or 8 teams that you're like, okay, one of them is going to win it. But at the end of the day, you have a ton of parity week to week. In terms of who can rattle off wins, compete for divisions in this league, we do not have that many awful teams. I mean, go through yourself. I'd say Houston and Indianapolis are probably out, right? The young quarterbacks, new head coaches, franchises are kind of all over the place, right? One has a very intrusive, kind of overbearing owner in Jim Irsay. One who has had a lot of weird, conduct in the front office in terms of Houston. The underwhelming rosters, they probably won't overcome that situation, those young quarterbacks. I would say Tampa and Carolina probably aren't ready to compete for a division or a playoff spot. Some people think Carolina's, I guess a dark horse, but I like Bryce Young. There's not a ton to work with. Offensive line's pretty weak. I think he could take a couple hits. There's a very real possibility he gets hurt. You hate to bank on that, but it's something you have to look at. Same thing with like a Tua in Miami, although I think they'll be fine. Tampa, I don't trust Baker. I mean, last time I saw Baker, yeah, he was fine with the Rams, not good with the Panthers. I would say Arizona. Arizona is not very good. Not very good. I mean, if Kyler comes back week 10, what are they, 2-8 at best, 1-9? Not a ton of talent there. It seems like they're almost offloading players, getting draft capital. They seem to be in a little bit of a rebuild. But that's kind of the entire list of teams that are like fairly consensus to be drafting in the top 10 next year. 5 teams. Dude, there's like 10 teams in the SEC alone that stand absolutely zero chance to win 9 games. No shot. No chance whatsoever. I mean, if you took, that's 5 teams out of 32 NFL teams, that's roughly like 8% of the league. I could be bad at math, but it's definitely under 10%. We'll go with 8. So that would mean 92% of the league has a chance to really make some waves in the league. I would argue it's the exact reverse in college football. There's about 5 to 7% of the country that stands a shot to make a meaningful bowl game, that even has a shot in the dark to make a New Year's Six game or a college football playoff. It's completely reversed. I mean, you could tell me, well, Jimmy G and Vegas, but if Jimmy G's upright, they win games. He doesn't lose. Their backup seems to be very competent, Aiden O'Connell. Washington, they still have a very nice defense, good skill position players. And we'll see at quarterback, played really, really well in the preseason, Sam Howell. Green Bay, they've never been bad. The Rams, McVay's great, Stafford's great. Kind of seems important in a coach quarterback league, I would say. Again, if you want to argue that there's not that many teams that actually have a real shot to win a Super Bowl, maybe I'd agree with you. But in terms of who can compete for divisions, win games, make some noise, you have almost the entire league on the table. And that's why we love the NFL. That's why I can't wait. I love college football. It's a good way to kill some time on a Saturday. It's a good way to look at prospects that are coming to the NFL. But in terms of what am I actually passionate about, it's the NFL. And there's a reason that the NFL is always going to be king in terms of rating, merchandise, popularity, because everybody's got a shot. Meanwhile, nobody's got a shot in college football.
Yeah, the competition level and it's so much more competitive in the NFL. Anybody has a shot, and everybody's also heard the saying, any team can win any given Sunday.
Any given Sunday.
So you have that, and then you flip it over and you look at like teams in the SEC, like a Missouri, and even Kentucky's been good, but Kentucky, Vanderbilt. You go through Ole Miss, Mississippi State.
Ole Miss might be okay, but yeah.
It's just like there's so much.
Auburn.
Yeah.
And they're a blue chip program. They absolutely stand zero shot to win 8 games this year.
It's like when
none whatsoever.
When Billy and Moneyball is like, there's 10 feet of dog crap, and then there's us. That's
exactly.
So look, there's a lot in college football that I think could be better. And we talk about it all the time. It's not interesting enough. There's so many games on a Saturday, but I only really want to watch 1 or 2. Like, I'll watch the big one. After that, I don't care. It's just background. It's me watching Friends at that point. It's just background noise.
You could go through. I love Friends. You could go through every division. Like, I'm sorry, Rutgers, love you. You stand no shot.
Nope.
None whatsoever. You will not make a meaningful bowl game.
Nebraska
Certainly won't make a New Year's Six. Nebraska, no chance. I mean, you go through the ACC. Georgia Tech, sorry, you stand no chance to be meaningful this year.
Florida State.
Nobody cares about you outside of Georgia.
Yeah.
None. Well, Florida State might be pretty decent.
I don't know.
They have an NFL quarterback, so we'll see.
There's like 2 or 3 teams in the ACC. There's about 4 or 5 in the SEC that can compete.
Clemson, Florida State, maybe Pitt if they're good. And I'm a Pitt fan. I'm a season ticket. And they're most of the time not relevant.
Right. And then there's
most of the time.
Then
in a
there's
football
your schools like your Georgia Tech, like your Boston colleges.
Could not possibly care less. They just don't matter.
Right. Like outside.
I'm sorry, they just don't.
Outside of that university and the families of all of the players.
You have a couple diehards here and there who just love ACC. Like, they love one conference, so they pay attention to Boston College.
Yeah.
But overall, like...
Or they're alumni that
matter.
They tune in every game because they miss the college days. But, you know, at the end of the day, the product of the NFL is significantly better than college football.
I would agree. Let's not dilly-dally. Let's go to hits and misses.
All right, yeah, let's hop right into it.
Okay, number one. I think I've said this. It kind of reminds me a lot of the Trevor Lawrence thing, where it's like a year in advance. We were like, he's going to be the number 1 pick, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with Caleb Williams. We've been saying it since it seems like the show when we first started it like 3 years ago, and he was a freshman or maybe even a senior in high school at that point. But basically, we've been saying for a while, Caleb Williams is a stud. He will be the number 1 pick. Teams are going to tank for him. Like, I look for Arizona. I put that in the newsletter, right? People are going to tank for Caleb Williams because he's a stud. What do you know? Week 0 or his first game this past year, or this year, 18 of 25, 278, 4 touchdowns, like a 218 QBR, which college QBRs are a little bit whack, but it's very good. He played really well, which we expected him to. He is the closest thing, and I don't have a problem saying this, to Mahomes. It kind of reminds me of a better version of Russell Wilson in his prime, right? It's basketball on grass. Like, it's just making stuff up. It's like he's a one-on-one ISO player, just making stuff up as he goes. Yeah. But he's a little bit more refined as a thrower than a Russell Wilson, or like a Johnny Manziel had a similar play style. But he's a lot more refined and a lot more talented than those guys. He's got the talent of Mahomes, but the playmaking ability of like a Manziel or like a Russell Wilson in his prime. It's special.
But I also think he also has the discipline of a Mahomes, too. He's not like the egotistical Johnny Manziel where, you know, I'm too good to watch film kind of deal. Yeah. You've always heard very good things. He's a great leader, great locker room guy. And yeah, like you said, he's been coming down the pipeline for so long now. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see where he goes, but not, like we always say, where he lands is going to matter. I think that is going to be more telling than anything else.
But I do think he is one of those guys, like an Andrew Luck, like a Trevor Lawrence, that is it going to work right away? Maybe, maybe not. But I do think he's going to be able to turn around pretty much any franchise he goes to. Like, I think he's going to be able to overcome almost anything. Like a Luck did, like a, you know, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, yes, it took him his second head coach, but
not anything like the quarterbacks from these last 2 draft classes where it's like you are completely contingent on where you land.
Yup, like Sam Darnold in New York was a big one, right? Yeah. It's like Sam Darnold's got talent, not in New York, sorry. Like, but yeah, Caleb was a stud. I mean, you knew whenever he gets put into the Red River rivalry, and it's like first play, true freshman to the house. Like, come on, you're like, all right, this guy's special. Yeah. Miss number 1 here. Evidently, ESPN thinks Minnesota, Pittsburgh, and Philly are going to regress, while the Browns,
which is ridiculous,
while the Browns and the Bears are going to rise. And we think the exact opposite. And I will say on a counterpoint here, the Bears better freaking improve. They won 5 games. You know, like, like that's like, of course. That's like you're a $110 soaking wet. Thin as a string bean. You're like, I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna get bigger. Well, buddy, you better. You're this close to dying. Like, you'd better. Like, they'd better win more games. The coach, GM, and quarterback are gone. So it's like, on a counterpoint, you better be on the rise. But we still think the exact opposite. I don't think Minnesota. I think Minnesota. Yes, are they going to regress from 12 wins and going 11-0 in 1-score games? Yeah. Are they still going to be really good and make the playoffs? Yeah.
But I also think, like, saying the Eagles are going to regress, I can see the argument for them maybe not making it back to the Super Bowl, and that's a regression, sure. But in terms of level of play, they drafted so well. Once again, had a great offseason. Jalen Hurts is special. They have so many weapons. That offensive line is crazy. Like they're going to be really.
Are they going to win one less game? Maybe.
They might not make it back to the Super Bowl. If you're calling that a regression, I don't know what to tell you.
Like, I guess technically it is, but like I
put them on a list where there are other teams that would very much more fit that mold of a regressing team. The only thing that we've worried about is them losing both coordinators. That's the only big question mark.
Yeah, I would agree. Hit number 2 here. I've said it before. Dak is very okay, right? He's a good quarterback, B to B plus. But there is a reason they gave up a 4th for Trey Lance. I know that there's a chance, or that there's almost no chance that he plays this year. But there is a chance that Dak's contract's coming up in 2 years. They might not want to pay a big tag for Dak. So for those who may not be super well versed and might not have time or the desire to get into the nitty-gritty contract details, right? Dak up for a contract in 2 years, even though it feels like we just had this debate like last year, do they pay him or not? But he's up for a contract in 2 years, right? Usually you start negotiating a year out, which means the next offseason, there's going to be a lot of Dak contract discussion. Well, he has a no-tag clause, so they can't franchise tag him. You can be franchise tag twice the player, unless in your contract it says no tag. He signed with a no-tag clause. So in 2 years, he is a free and clear free agent, can hit the market. They have no rights over him whatsoever to tag him, to negotiate, whatever. So he has all the leverage in 2 years. This is more than likely a chance for Dallas to say, hey, we're going to take a flyer on this guy. Maybe he improves to give us some leverage back in 2 years. And so it's basically them saying, Dak, we like you, but there's a chance we don't want to pay that $250 million tag that's going to come up here in 2 years. That's what you're going to be asking for. There's a chance that's why they get Trey Lance. And I've said it for a while, Dak's good, but at what cost? And I think Dallas is kind of realizing that now.
They're realizing that they need a backup plan.
Yeah.
And that they haven't won anything with Dak on that big contract. And it's been talked about so much through sports media, I don't know how you miss it, right? I mean, like, that one of the worst contracts ever, near the Daniel Jones level.
Okay, but to be fair, they do win like 10, 11 games every year.
Yeah,
so
but
it's not the worst ever.
It's not their standard. It's not what they want in Dallas. Okay. If on Dak's end, though, signing the no tag clause,
smart,
I think is smart. But like, also, what if you're not the tag might have been able to save you? That might be your best option in 2 years.
Dak will get money. Dak will get a better contract than a tag. Okay, you said it's the standard. They haven't been to a Super Bowl in like 30 years.
Yes, I know, but
it shouldn't be their standard. I know it is, but it shouldn't be.
Yes.
I'm just throwing that out there. Miss number 2 here. I said Kenny Pickett would have a relatively low ceiling, right? Especially when he was coming out with the draft. Even after last year, I'm like, okay, like, he's okay. Like, I project him as like a lower end Jared Goff, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, somewhere in that range. Anywhere between 10 and 18 in the league, right? That felt about right. A little bit more mobile than some of those guys. But I don't know. Maybe there's something more. I know it's preseason. I know he's only played 5 drives, but he's got just as many touchdowns as he has incompletions, And it's one thing. That's the one thing I don't want to, box score watch. I looked at the highlights. Those throws will play no matter when, right? Like, those are pinpoint accurate throws. I don't care who's guarding, the receiver. It doesn't matter. Those are really good throws, whether it's a second team guy, third string guy, or the starter. Like, those throws are going to play at every level. So it is looking good. I think he may have a higher ceiling than we might have thought.
The arm strength is there. The zip on the ball is there.
Yeah.
Like, the questions that were surrounding Kenny Pickett are now starting to disappear a little bit because you're able to see more. And that's the biggest thing that we've been arguing is you need to see a bigger sample size.
Yeah.
And yes, it's preseason, but it is adding to the sample size in which we've seen from Kenny Pickett, and it looks good. If it looked horrible, we'd be talking about it. It's not just, we're not just trying to blow smoke here. Can he play like the second best quarterback in this division? Obviously, he's not going to play.
I think that's very doable. I like Lamar, but injury concerns.
Exactly.
Hasn't been the same since that MVP year.
Better
thrower than people give him credit for, but still not an elite passer.
As you mentioned last week, though, he's not available. Lamar is not available, in the most important part of the season.
December, January, not available.
On the other hand, Kenny Pickett
played
the best football that he ever has in the NFL in the late season in Baltimore to end the year.
I would tend to agree, and yeah, that's all. Hit number 3 here. Our off-season grades have been spot on.
Oh yeah,
we've said Pittsburgh is on the rise. Watch out for Atlanta and their offensive line, right? Detroit's looking good. All these teams. Now I know people have this notion that preseason is not important. Why? Because Sean McVay didn't play his starters. They went 8-0. They didn't win the Super Bowl. Yeah, they got there. They didn't win it. Like, who has the hardest offseason? Go ask players. Andy Reid and the Chiefs. Preseason's important. Like, I know that we've been, like, kind of downgrading it, downplaying it. It's important. And everybody that we said going into the offseason have had good grades and are on the up and up have had really nice preseasons. Really nice. I mean, the Ravens, up until this past preseason, have won, 26 straight preseason games? Now, I know they don't win a ton of Super Bowls, but, like, they've been really good for, 15 straight years. So it's like, clearly there's an importance to preseason. And who we thought would be good going in has shown that they've been really, really good so far.
Yeah, I mean, how else are you supposed to look at, project, and judge guys at the next level, especially when they're rookies and younger in the league?
100%.
They're getting live action and live snaps, and it's televised, and you can watch it anywhere. It doesn't hold the weight of the regular season, obviously, and it's not like a direct correlation between the two. But it's something. It's something to look at. It's something to examine. And if you didn't examine it, you're stupid. If you are in the sports media business and you don't put any weight on preseason and you just say, screw it, who cares? What are you doing?
Yeah, I would agree. Mr. Number 3 here. All of our haters, everybody in the comment section, delete your account. You're never going to be anything. You couldn't be more wrong. Trust me, we're right more than we're wrong, and it's caught the attention of a lot of people. Of course, we're going to start having the live show because we're freaking awesome.
Yeah.
iHeartRadio's reaching out. You can now stream us on iHeartRadio as of next week.
Yep.
So is it a little bit of a slow process? Absolutely, but trust me, we are so much better than everybody in the comments thinks. And we appreciate all the people that are actually supporting us as opposed to just hating us. But just like that one bowler said, love me or hate me, you're still watching me. So
you're tuning in.
We do appreciate all the views and the support, but screw you haters. We're on the up and up.
What's up? Guys, yeah, that was Hits and Misses. Stick around. Second segment, we will have our divisional revisions going through. I think we got 3 divisions that we're going to fix.
That'll be in the third. We got Mike coming up here.
Well, yeah, but we have the divisional revisions and then Mike Nicastro to finish out the second segment. Guys, thanks for sticking around. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back, welcome in if this is the first part you're listening, but I would recommend you go back and watch that first segment. I had a little bit of a rant kind of comparing college football and the NFL and the different levels of competition. And then we did hits and misses per usual to finish out that first segment. We're going to do a little bit of a revision here, right? We do divisional predictions up to 8 or 9 weeks ago.
Yep.
A lot can change in that time, so we give ourselves a week buffer so we can kind of do some revisions, go back and adjust some things to, based on how the teams look. And then also we will talk to Mike Nicastro following that to finish out the second segment. Very tied into Pittsburgh in terms of every sport really, but really specializes kind of like we do in the NFL and in the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we'll talk to him a little bit about that and looking ahead at the season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then in the third segment, we'll finish out, me and you will give our predictions, bold predictions, teams to fall flat, teams, dark horses, and then of course our Super Bowl predictions. So you're not going to want to miss that. But like I said, we'll start with the revisions here in the second segment. Guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, it's been a great show. This is my favorite time just because we are getting so close to the season and there's not much left to do with off-season stuff, right? So, this is the last one. We give our predictions. We've done it for, the last 3 years where we kind of revise what we've done over the last 8 weeks, and then we look forward and do our way too early playoff picture,
right?
Which is, I think, always fun. And then it gives us some good misses too for hits and misses sometimes.
Right.
Take some big swings.
We're basically writing in Sharpie now, right? We've been writing in pencil all summer. These are predictions subject to change.
Yes.
Now we're
finalizing
we're sharpieing them in. We're finalizing them.
Final draft, final copy.
Yep. Final copy is about to be submitted. So let's get into it.
Let's go. We got 3 divisions to fix. Let's start it off.
Yeah, so I guess that's a good point. We should bring that up. We limit ourselves to 3 revisions.
Yeah.
Not 3 teams, 3 divisions that we can revise. I think that's fair. Revising all of them, then there's no point in
doing them in the first place.
Right.
Wait till the end.
Exactly. So 3 revisions, I think, is fair. So you gotta kind of pick and choose. So let's start with I think we do this first usually, the NFC West.
Yeah,
so let's start there.
8 weeks ago.
Right. And so originally we had San Francisco the Rams, Seattle, and then Arizona. We're going to keep the bookends. I think San Francisco still is the best team in that division. Roster, Brock Purdy, still accurate, on time, can distribute the ball to those wildly talented playmakers. Kyle Shanahan is still one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in football. And they still have a loaded defense. So they're number one. I still think Arizona, I do think they're tanking, so I think they'll end up 4, maybe 5 wins at best. They're in the basement still. In the middle is where I think you're going to see some change. We had Seattle at 9-8 and the Rams at 10-7 in second place. To me, I don't see it with the Rams as much as I thought I did.
They're not winning 10 games.
I do like the Stafford-McVay combo in a quarterback-coach league. That's important, and they do have that. But they have almost no depth anywhere else. Their defense is going to be really bad, really bad. So for me, I think they drop down to 8-9. And conversely, I think Seattle has shown a lot. If their young guys are going to get better, we had them at 9-8. I think they can get another win. I think they do break the double-digit win barrier and go 10-7. That feels right. Even if Geno Smith isn't what he was last year, even if he falls back, regresses to the mean a little bit, he's still going to be a very, very competent quarterback. 2 good backs, good offensive line, 3 really nice receivers, although Jackson Smith and Jigba will be hurt for the first 3 weeks. Defense gets a lot of pieces back. Jamal Adams, Jordan Brooks, a couple edge rushers they get back that they really like. So there's a lot of talent on that team, young talent that's going to develop. I think that's worth a win. 10-7 feels right for Seattle.
Yeah, I like that. They needed to move up, and in turn, the Rams need to go down a little bit. I just don't. I don't see it. I see them being better than last year for sure, but it's not going to be anything crazy. It's not going to be anything where, I just don't. I'm not the biggest fan of the Rams. They went all in for their season. They got it, but now they need to retool again. Yeah,
I agree. I do think in terms of you're looking in the NFL, coach, quarterback, receiver, star pass rusher, and then I'd probably go left tackle, right? They have 4 or 5 checked.
But then you have to fill in the gaps everywhere else, though.
Right, but at the end of the day, if you can check those boxes, you're bound to win at least 6 games. So I do think they win 8 games. They'll be below 500. They'll probably miss the playoffs. But I do think they're going to be a competitive 8-9 team.
Yeah.
So to sum up that revision, Seattle is going to go from 9-8 to 10-7. The Rams will go from 10-7 to 8-9.
I like that.
Let's move to the other division. We're going to stay in the NFC. Let's go with the NFC East. Yeah.
Okay.
So we had Philly at 13-4. I do think they regress a little bit. They do lose both their coordinators. They lost both their safeties. Their linebackers are now gone. So there is a lot of turnover on the team. Now I do think they're going to replenish it with a lot of young talent. I still think the offense is great. A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, 2 good backs. So I think they're going to be fine. But I do think 12-5 is a fair regression. 1 game back. I don't think it's anything crazy. I still think they win the division. I still think they're probably the number 1 seed in the NFC. But I do worry a little bit about losing both coordinators. Might take them some time, right? So maybe they start slow. Yeah. That's worth a game. So 12-5 feels right.
Yeah, you have to be able to gel with the new coordinators. That's going to be the biggest hurdle to overcome. Yeah. And I don't think they're going to have a problem with it. It will straighten itself out, but it could be bumpy to get started, right? I mean, we saw how the Daboll leaving Buffalo thing went.
Yeah,
right.
No, it could definitely be bumpy for Hurts in that offense to start.
Yeah.
So we have the order the same. We still have Philly, Dallas, New York, and then Washington. But we are going to give New York a couple extra wins. We had them at 8-9. I think that's a 10-win football team. Nobody's talking about it. But they're pretty good up front. Andrew Thomas is a great left tackle. Evan Neal's shown so far this preseason he's taking steps forward to be a really good right tackle. Yeah. They like the center that they just drafted a ton. You have a really good back. They're fairly decent on the outside. They lack a little bit of depth. I think Jalen Hyatt's going to be a really nice pickup for them from Tennessee. And Daniel Jones has his flaws, but over the past 2 years, he doesn't turn the football over anymore. So that's really good. Yeah. He's able to distribute the ball and be fairly efficient without losing them football games. And we know their defense is going to be really good. So I think 8-9 was a little bit low. I think 10-7, 9-8 feels more right. We'll land at 10-7. And then Washington. I do still think they stay in the basement because it's a very competitive division. But 5-12 just seems low for a team with 7 or 8 first-round picks on the defensive side. Ron Rivera being a defensive coach. And they have 2 really nice receivers. I love Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson as a 1-2 punch. It's just who's getting them the ball. But Sam Howell's shown he's been pretty good in preseason as well and has shown a lot of good chemistry with those two, especially when throwing to Dotson and Terry McLaurin. So that's why I think Washington probably goes from 5-12 to 7-10. I think it's going to be a fairly competitive division. I don't think any of the teams are going to be awful. and 5-12 is awful. So I just can't predict them at awful. I think 7-10 feels right.
Yeah, that's a lot. I'd say that's fair. Sam Howell looks good. There you go, New York. You can stop bashing us now.
Yeah,
okay?
We did get a lot of hate from the Giants. I think they're flying under the radar. I think their schedule's not overly brutal. I think 10-7 is so doable.
All right, I like that. So what's that finalized division there?
If we're going Philly from 13-4 to 12-5, still number one. We'll have Dallas, I think, at 11-6. The Giants at 10-7. We had them at 8-9 previously. And then from 5-12 to 7-10 for the Commanders.
Good, like it.
Let's pop over to the AFC. The AFC South. So we had Tennessee at 8-9. It's hard for me to believe that a Mike Vrabel coached football team is going to be bad. So, and I know it's only one extra win. I just can't see them being below 500. I think they're a slightly above 500 football team at 9-8. Now, I do worry about Will Levis, Malik Willis. Are they going to end up playing at some point?
There are definitely question marks, I'll tell you.
If Tannehill starts all 17 games, I think it's a 9-8 football team. My only concern is, do they eventually turn it over to a Levis or a Malik Willis, and they're not ready to compete yet?
And then who knows what it looks like from there.
Right, but I will bank on them being 9-8 based on their culture, their run game, their front seven is still really, really good.
Yeah.
I worry a little bit about the O-line, but I think they're going to be a competitive football team. No shakeup in the order here, but in terms of record, that's a little bit of a shakeup. And then Indianapolis, I'll give them an extra win as well. I've liked what I've seen from Richardson, although sporadic, although not quite as efficient as you'd like, wildly talented. He'll be able to just run around, make plays. I think his playmaking ability is going to be worth a win, so that's why I'll bump him up one.
Yeah.
And also, look what Shane Steichen's done. Made Herbert really, really good. Made Jalen Hurts really, really good. Like, it's hard to believe that from week 1 to week 17, Anthony Richardson's not going to get exponentially better, and he'll be able to win you a game late in the year that you didn't see him winning from week 1.
Right. I agree with that. He has such a high ceiling, and his potential, he has the potential to be so good.
Yeah.
And it's really going to hinge on him. I mean, I like them with an extra win. I'd maybe give him 2.
Maybe
if
7-10.
If he can play pretty well.
My only concern is what's the deal with Jonathan Taylor.
It's so hard for me to project that.
What's the deal with Jonathan Taylor, though? Right? Like, if he holds out for the first 8 weeks, I think they're at 6-11 football team. If he plays, he's probably worth a win in the first 8 games. Maybe they're 7-10. Yeah. So I think it just all hinges on Jonathan Taylor.
Indianapolis is tough to predict right now.
They are very tough to predict because there's a lot to like. Shane Steichen's really, really good. I think Michael Pittman's underrated. Like, Anthony Richardson's super talented.
He has a ton of talent.
Yeah, he's so talented. Jonathan Taylor, if he plays, is really good, but we just don't know. We just don't know with Indy, so I don't know. We'll see.
That's why it's going to be awesome.
But to sum up, we still have the Jags in first at 12-5. Tennessee gets a bump from 8-9 to 9-8. Same thing with Indy, gets a 1-win bump from 5-12 to 6-11. Guys, those are our revisions. So like I said, we did some of these divisions like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks ago. So it's like, well, things change. Roll with the punches. These are some revisions that we made.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen a lot since then. 8 weeks ago, we didn't even have... There was no preseason, right? There wasn't even OTAs yet. So we've seen a ton come out of all the camps. Now we can finally sit back the week before we do our first predictions for week 1 of the NFL, really solidify them, set them in.
Yeah.
Those are the predictions. Don't hate us.
Yeah.
But now, friend of the show is about to join us, Mike Nicastro. We've had him on before. We love having him on. Let's just bring him up.
Let's get into it. All right, we got Mike Nicastro from the Sick podcast, Yin's Sick or Crazy Sick, something. I don't know. I feel like it's changed a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your show, kind of what you guys have been doing. You got a lot of good stuff coming out, a lot of new show news for you. So give us a little spiel about your show, what you guys have been up to.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. First of all, always like your work. You guys are really, really good at what you do, and you're going to continue growing. That's for sure. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit confusing. Our podcast is the Sick Podcast, Steelers Crazy. We work with the Sick Media team. You can subscribe. Just type in Steelers Crazy on YouTube. That'll come up. Done a lot of cool things this offseason. Had some pretty big guests on. Guys like Ogunjobi all the way to Nick Herbig and so on and so forth. So make sure you check that out. And then we still have our cool blog, yinzercrazy.com, if you want to ever read up on some stuff that we're writing, some of my thoughts that are more pen to paper type deal. So check those out. But yeah, I appreciate you allowing me to plug those, and thanks for catching up. Let's chat.
Yeah, of course. So let's start with the hometown Steelers, right? It's kind of your expertise. It's what everybody really wants to know about anyway. And I talked in the first segment a little bit about how I thought Kenny Pickett kind of looking back to when he was drafted, right? I said he's going to be a little bit of a lower ceiling player, right? He's come in, same building, right? Same practice facility, same stadium, right? 4-year starter, 3-year starter in college, right? A lot of games under his belt. We're going to see pretty quickly, like, this is about what he is, kind of like a Mac Jones, where it's like, this is what it is. This is kind of what we're rolling with for now, right? He's not Anthony Richardson who's going to develop for 4 years. But this preseason, and I know it's only preseason, but is there a chance that his ceiling is higher than we thought? Like, what are you hearing and what are you seeing through the Steelers organization about Kenny Pickett?
I think it's definitely higher than Mac Jones' ceiling. That's for sure. If you want to just compare those two guys, I still don't think he can be an elite guy. I really don't. I don't see him ever being in the Joe Burrow conversation, the Josh Allen conversation, the Mahomes, right? The elites of the AFC that you're going to have to go through. But I've always said he is a quarterback that can win with a good team around him. And, there's still something to be said for that. Listen, I'm not going to proclaim him NFL MVP because of 5 preseason drives. I'm really not. And I was generally higher on Pickett than most, I think, last season. But it's almost flipped now, right? We're getting a lot of folks saying, hey, sleeper MVP candidate. And I'm kind of like, all right, pump the brakes a little bit, guys. Like he played the equivalent of essentially 1/2 of football this preseason. Now, he still looked great. And it's better to look great than look like crap in the preseason. So there's still something to be said for that. I think his ceiling maybe is a little bit higher. I still think he's a really high floor player. I don't think you're ever going to see a 7 touchdown, 9 interception season out of him again. I think he'll always be somewhere in that 20 touchdown, 10 interception type range, which is a good touchdown to INT ratio. I keep making the Trevor Lawrence year 1 to year 2 comp. Trevor Lawrence, really bad first year, kind of had a disaster down there with Urban Meyer in Jacksonville. Threw more interceptions than touchdowns. Just didn't look very good. We were all quite surprised by that. I think he can make a Lawrence-type leap in year 2. And then Lawrence was great last year and obviously got the Jags in the playoffs. I think he had I don't remember, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, something like that. I think Kenny can get to that stat line and make the playoffs and have that kind of big second-year leap. But I don't think he has the ceiling of Trevor Lawrence when it's all said and done. I think I've comped him to a couple guys in the past. I really like the Alex Smith comparison. When you first hear that, when you first hear that, you're kind of like, yuck. That's generally the takeaway when you hear Alex Smith.
He's a first overall pick, though.
So that's why people think yuck, is because, you almost want to think of him as this bust. Check down Charlie or whatever you want to call it. Or people remember him for tearing up his leg at the end of his season. But if you really take a deep dive into it, he is a 3-time Pro Bowler, made it to, an NFC Championship game with the 49ers, almost won, got to the Super Bowl. I think he's one of 6 players in NFL history with, I can't remember the exact stat, but it's like him, John Elway, Aaron Rodgers, Donovan McNabb, and one other guy that has X amount of pass and rush yards in the NFL. Yeah. So he played a really good career, long career, and was a guy who could win a lot of games with a good team around him, didn't turn it over a lot, was mobile. I see a lot of similarities there. Never had the strongest arm, but you can win a Super Bowl with a guy like that at the end of the day. And so does he have the highest ceiling in the world? To answer your question, no, I still don't think that's changed a whole lot, but I think he can be a good quarterback at this level for sure.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said with the rookie contract too, right? I mean, because he's not ever going to be top of the league. No, he's not going to be a top 5 quarterback. But when you can put the pieces around him that need to be around him, I think that can, in turn, kind of propel him and make him look a little bit better than he actually is.
I think I said that with, was that last week, talking about the Jared Goff, before he got paid in Los Angeles, right? Jeff Fisher, it's a little rough, gets McVay. He kind of pops a little bit while he's under that rookie deal. They could load it up. But to kind of pivot here, to me, Broderick Jones and the O-line, kind of I don't want to say the whole season hinges upon them, but I do think they are the key to the season. Kind of like the Jets. They're a lot better than the Jets, and they're not quite as dependent on the O-line. But I do think if the line plays well, we could be looking at an 11, 12-win team. If not, 7, 8, 9 feels about right. Am I crazy there? Is that hyperbolic to say that it could be a 12-win team if that offensive line is, anywhere between 8 and 12 in the league?
Nah, you're not crazy at all. Part of the reason Pickett and the first team offense have looked so damn good this preseason is because they are being well protected. And obviously, quite frankly, that's just something we didn't see in the last couple of years, going back to Ben's final year when Kevin Colbert decided to draft Kendrick Green to be his starting center in his final year before retirement. So they've been overhauling this thing for 2 consecutive years. It honestly started in free agency with Isaac Samalo. This dude is one of the most unheralded, best signings, I think, in all of football this season. He's not going to get a lot of fanfare, but ultimately could be the reason why the Steelers do get to that 11-win mark, because he's just such a good player, a road grader, a real leader. You go back to last year, even with James Daniels and Mason Cole, another year in this system, 2 really consistent players as well, who are not snapping the ball over the quarterback's head consistently.
Right.
And then I think you feel pretty comfortable with Chuks at right tackle, and you're right, that left tackle spot is going to probably determine how far they go ultimately. They're going to start with Dan Moore Jr., it feels like, out there in week 1 and week 2 against potentially Nick Bosa. We'll see if he plays. I know he's a little bit hurt. And then Myles Garrett in week 2. Let him maybe take his lumps before they throw Broderick Jones into the fire. But I think the competition has been healthy for both of them. It sounds like Dan Moore has vastly improved. And he ultimately could make his way to right tackle at some point. And Broderick Jones, we know the natural talent, the tools, the skill set. It's all there. I just think it's going to take a little bit of time for him to click. Will be in time for the Steelers to make a deep playoff run? Let's hope so. But I have them around a 10-11 win team myself, and I think the offensive line, for that to happen, the offensive line has to be better, and I think they will.
Yeah, that's fair. Mike, if I said, give me a player on the roster that you think the general public, they're not on, they don't get it, but that is going to make an immediate impact, I would say Calvin Austin, but I think a lot of people understand the raw talent, the speed, the physical traits that are there with Calvin Austin. Is there anybody that stands out to you where it's like nobody's talking about this guy? They might not even start, but they're going to rotate in and be, a factor week 1 through 18.
It's a good question because obviously, you know all about your stars. There's a name that came to mind that I haven't talked much about yet on any podcast, really, or nobody's talked about recently. And that name is Keanu Neal. It seems like he really, dropped off in Steelers fans' eyes after the Quan Alexander signing. People were kind of like, all right, Keanu Neal, this Swiss Army knife who could play in the box and who also has a pretty high pedigree and can do some things, covering as well back there at safety. And then you sign Quan Alexander and you're like, oh my God, the Steelers got this athletic freak who can do all these things. But, they already kind of had a version of that to a degree. And Keanu Neal, who, like I said, is initially was, potentially signed back there to be Terrell Edmonds' replacement, a physical safety who can really tackle, who can, like I said, he's going to make some hits this year whenever he's healthy where you're like, oh my God, like that was insane. That's an old school Madden hit stick. That's like a "you got jacked up" segment from.
I missed that segment.
We had to outlaw that, man, because of concussion protocol and whatnot. But that wasn't a wild segment. Go back and watch some clips of that. But
that was great.
He's a hard hitter. He's gonna make some big plays. I think he's just being overshadowed right now by some of the other guys on defense who are getting the fanfare. Nick Herbig, Quan Alexander, like these are the guys that we're talking about right now. But yeah, I mean, the first handful of games, I'll just go out on a limb. I'll say he'll make a big play, maybe a big forced fumble that turns the tide of a game, and hopefully we remember this conversation.
Yeah. I think that's huge in the run support too. Just trying to nip that in the bud as much as possible, keep teams off the ground. Yeah.
All right, let's pop outside of Pittsburgh for the last couple questions here. Trey Lance to the Cowboys. For me, it kind of makes sense in terms of Dallas, right? Dak's contract. It feels like we just had the whole Dak's first contract debate. Where it's like, do you pay him? He pays him late. And now we're already probably another year away from another contract debate with Dak. But he has a no-tag clause, right? So he's got all the leverage. Is this Dallas kind of trying to gain some leverage back, take a flyer on a guy who they liked coming out, but it was just too much to be able to get him in terms of assets, draft capital, all that? Like, what's your take on that from both Dallas and San Francisco's perspective?
Yeah, well, from the 49ers' perspective, it makes a lot of sense. He wasn't going to play this year. Brock Purdy is firmly entrenched there, and it's such a distinct level of play style drop off between Purdy and Lance that if he did get hurt, they want to go to Darnold because he's like a Purdy light type deal. That also has nothing to do with how badly they botched it, honestly, because you've seen the list of players the Dolphins have received because of that trade. It's like Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb,
Yeah.
Zach Hall of Famers, Zach Thomas. No, I'm just kidding. But Jason Taylor,
Yeah.
they
It's like a
Dan Marino, from that
yeah.
trade. Yeah.
Might as
Fire
well.
off how many we could think of. Yeah. But I mean, listen, some of that too is because Lance got hurt. So I don't want to put that all on 49ers or Lance being a bust. But yeah, from a Cowboys perspective, it's definitely at least to push Dak. It's to say like, hey, we see how this league is working now. It's Super Bowl or we're going to try again in terms of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Right. It's not always how it used to be. But you see teams like the Rams were a great example that you just mentioned. Jared Goff, perfectly fine quarterback, got them to a Super Bowl. They could have won if they beat the Patriots and scored some points in that game. And you know what they do? They ship them off because there was a better option out there that they wanted to try.
Right.
Look what the Cardinals are doing. Kyler Murray, good quarterback, right? Not going to win a Super Bowl with him, it doesn't look like. He's going to be gone. They're going to draft Caleb Williams after the season because
I said that in our newsletter. I put that out. I said people think I'm crazy. If by week 11 he's ready to come back and they're 2-9, I'm telling you, they're not bringing him back. They're just going to say, "Hey, take the season off, go play COD. We'll draft Caleb Williams."
Yep, and he'll be happy to do that. But
Probably.
yeah, I mean that's what's happening with Dak right now. I think if he plays well, obviously, and they win a lot of games and get close, it's a good problem to have. But I think if they go out whimpering and he throws a lot of picks like last year, you start to hear the drama and the controversy, and before you know it, it's like, does Dak say, I want to be traded? I'm kind of sick of this. Give me a new start. And are the Cowboys kind of like secretly happy about that because they acquired Lance? We'll see. I mean, I think first and foremost, it's just, hey, we notice right now what's going on. Like we know we want to put some pressure on you. You need to throw less picks. We need to advance further. And if you don't, we're ready to move on and give this kid a shot. So it's just the new NFL, man. And it's something that Steeler fans talked about last year with Kenny Pickett. Like if he comes out and listen, he looks fantastic. I think he's going to be the quarterback here for a long time. But if he's terrible this season, like you already got to start thinking about it again, don't you? It's just the league we're in, man.
Yeah, for sure. All right, last question here. Any big predictions? Let's hear it. I don't know if you released your Super Bowl predictions yet, but maybe some dark horse teams, teams that kind of fall flat that you think everybody's on. Like for me, the Jets. I don't see them being that good. The offensive line is really bad, and I think outside of Garrett Wilson, the receiving core is pretty weak as well. So that's kind of like my fall flat team. Like, who are some of your bold predictions as we kind of get close to the season? We've been writing in pencil all summer, trying to start inking some things in there. What are your big predictions?
I love it. Luke, listen, I'm ready to go all Stephen A. Smith versus Skip Bayless with Tim right now. All right?
I got
I'm ready to do it because I completely disagree on the Jets.
You think the Jets?
Completely disagree. And I hate that I disagree because I hate rooting for them. I have some friends who are just New Yorkers who think they're going to win the Super Bowl every single year, and I don't like rooting for them. I think they're going to be really good, and I hate that they're going to be really good. And the reason I think they're going to be good is because it reminds me very much so of this, of what happened with the Rams when they were close and acquired Stafford, when the Bucs when they were close and acquired Brady. Granted, their offensive lines are better, of course. That's your.
I was
key
just
going
to say. I mean, you had Andrew Whitworth, Tristan Wirfs ended up becoming the best right tackle in football for the Bucs.
Of course. And listen, that's probably the reason ultimately where I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. However, this is a team last year that beat the Steelers with Zach Wilson that could have easily still made the playoffs with Mike White. Right? They bring in a guy that I still think is very good. Aaron Rodgers last year fell off a little bit. He was unhappy. His best receiver, too, at the end of the day was Christian Watson. He was MVP twice 2 years before that. So they bring in a quarterback who's a substantial upgrade to a team that almost made the playoffs. I think Garrett Wilson is going to be phenomenal this year. You bring Lazard over, who I think can still play. That defense is still exceptional over there. Sauce Gardner. The offensive line is the big question mark, of course, and I think there's a little bit of that slow start that's going to happen with them because of how teams come together. But I think they catch fire at the end of the season, and I think they win the AFC East, which is a bold prediction. I think they beat Buffalo. There's one.
That is certainly a bold prediction. So their first 6 games, they face 6 to 7 top pass rushers in football. That's my concern. Those 6 games, If they can go 2-4, Mike, I think I'm with you in terms of they can compete for a playoff spot and maybe make some noise. I don't think they win the AFC East, but I do think they win 10, maybe 11 games if they go 2-4. There's a very real chance, though, that they go 1-5. Like, that is a gauntlet. I mean, the easiest game's the Patriots. They haven't beat the Patriots in 7 years.
They'll beat them. They stink.
I think so, too, but it's not a given.
Bills, Cowboys, I see them splitting. I don't know which one they'll take, but they're going to split.
That's fair.
One of those two.
That's fair.
And then I know there's
the Eagles and the Chiefs and the other two.
The Chiefs and Eagles, too, right?
Yeah.
Both on the road.
Yeah.
Both on the road. I thought one of those was at home.
I think one of them's at home. I don't remember which one.
So 2-4 potentially. I think there's maybe a chance they go 3-3.
Yeah, they do
I
have
could
the
see
Chiefs
2-4.
at home.
I can see 2-4. The sky is falling type deal. But that AFC East is so good; they're all going to beat up on each other. And then I know just because I've been looking at this schedule and arguing with some folks already that down the stretch they have like the Browns, they have the Commanders, they have some teams they'll beat down the stretch. I just see them getting hot later. Yeah, it has to. I see them getting hot later in the season and making a similar push that the Stafford Rams did, the Bucks Brady's did. It's just that formula to me where you have a really good, competitive, complete, close team without a good quarterback. And so I see that coming to fruition. All right. As for season-long predictions, I know we took a lot of time on the JETS. Right. I think the Steelers are going to make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to win the AFC North. The Bengals are still going to win the AFC North. I think 3 AFC North teams are going to make the playoffs. Baltimore is going to be in as well as a wild card. I have one more big-time bold prediction. I'm not sure how much we'll take in a debate here, but I think the Titans are going to win the AFC South. That's my other big-time bold prediction.
See, I would disagree.
I like the Jags.
But, I like the Jags a lot, yeah. I just think with that schedule, the Jags, I mean, they play like 2 elite quarterbacks. They'll have a marked quarterback coach advantage in like 15 of 17 games. That's why I like the Jags. I think on the flip side, most of the games the Titans are going to have a coach advantage. Quarterback, absolutely not. I think there's a very real possibility they'll pivot to either Levis or Malik Willis at some point, and I'm not sure they're ready for that step to win a division as a young quarterback. The culture, the defense, the run game, I can see how they'd be a dark horse. I would disagree though.
Yeah, just remember, fellas, 3 teams from each conference every year that didn't make the playoffs generally makes the playoffs. If we want to go down the line, Chiefs, Bengals, Jags, Bills, it sounds good, right? Ravens, it sounds good, but some shit is due to hit the fan. And I'll quickly give my reasoning on the Titans. Like you said, really good coach. I agree. I never thought Tannehill was very good, but somehow Tannehill had them as the number 1 seed in the AFC 2 of the last 4 years.
That's fair.
They lost him last year. They still almost won the division if they win that last game against the Jags with Josh Dobbs. Henry's still going to be a beast. They're going to beat up on the Texans and Colts, so they're going to win 9 games, I think, regardless. It'll come down to 1 or 2 against Jacksonville, and it's like I said, it's bold for sure. But nobody saw the Seahawks playing well last year. The Eagles still kind of sprung out of nowhere last year, so I think they're being disrespected. They were the number 1 seed in the AFC, then they lost their quarterback and didn't make the playoffs, and now people think they're going to win 2 games. So
that is fair.
I threw some bold ones at you, so you got me on record.
Good.
That's fair. That's good, Mike. We really appreciate the time. You're always well connected in terms of Steelers and just well versed in anything really football related. So we always appreciate you coming on, and we'll have to do this again, hopefully mid-season or something, and kind of do an update, I guess, once we see the teams actually start playing out. Yeah,
I was going to say, you say I'm well versed now. Wait until the Titans are like 1-10 and the Jets are 1-8.
Then I'll definitely make sure we got to have you back on that for sure.
Take a victory lap of some sort.
Yeah.
No, you should if that's the case. Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Check out Sick Podcast, Steelers Crazy. Subscribe. We got a big announcement coming up. I'll throw that out there right now. Awesome. So everybody get ready.
Perfect.
Love it, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you, boys.
Well, let's go into the third segment here, August 31st, Thursday, episode 201. We got a good third segment here for you. We have our playoff predictions. We're going to be going through our projected AFC, NFC winner, and then, of course, who wins that final game there in the Super Bowl, all here in the third segment. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. No matter how you are joining us today, we're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Amazon Prime Video, iTunes. And next week, we debut on iHeartRadio. So we appreciate all the support. We appreciate you following along. Make sure you go to theissuesports.com. Check out everything we got over there. We got some good merch, good football merch for the season. A lot of Steelers stuff, a lot of stuff for other markets too. Go get a Pray for the Parlay shirt if you're a big sports bettor. I know we are. We throw parlays down all the time, just random bets, UFC. It doesn't matter the sport.
Big
if you're a
UFC
fan
guy.
of betting, go check out the shop. Get yourself a Pray for the Parlay shirt. And then we brought back the Josh Allen Winter Soldier design. Tim wore that last week. So a ton of good stuff. Go over, check it out. Sign up for the newsletter while you're there. Just type the email in. It's right on the homepage. Can't miss it.
Certainly worth your while. I do want to kind of preface this segment with a little bit of a discussion on how normally on average there's, I think, 4.5, maybe 5 new playoff teams every year. And we're going through and we're only going to have 2 new playoff teams. And I think as this league becomes more and more quarterback dependent in terms of success, in terms of leading to wins and winning divisions, winning playoff games, we see that there's a little bit of a separation. Yes, we talked in the first segment about how there are a lot of teams that have a chance. There's very few teams that are full blown out of it and not very good. But at the end of the day, like you'll see a separation in the top of the league, and then kind of the middle of the pack. Who, yes, they have a chance, but most likely the better quarterback's going to prevail, and that's just kind of a result of this league becoming more and more quarterback dependent. So just kind of wanted to throw it out there to preface it, because I know a lot of people are like, there's always going to be more playoff teams, more new playoff teams. I get that. But I do think, again, as this league becomes more quarterback dependent, more quarterback reliant, you're going to see it kind of be a little bit easier to predict, if that makes sense.
Yeah, a little more separation between the good quarterbacks and good teams. All right, let's hop right into it. These are the playoff and Super Bowl predictions, way too early playoff and Super Bowl predictions for the 2023-2024 NFL season. Here we go.
Let's start in the slightly more boring NFC, because I think the AFC
kind of builds to the AFC.
It's loaded, right?
Yeah.
So in the NFC, we have going from 7 to 1. We'll have the Giants at 7. We just made revisions today, bumping them up a couple slots. That moves them into the playoffs. Look, do I love Daniel Jones? No. But does he get the job done? Absolutely. Yeah. Really, really good. I mean, if you look, we talked about the Rams, right? If you're checking boxes, right? Good left tackle. Capable quarterback, genius offensive head coach, capable, not special, but capable weapons, really good defensive front to get after the passer. Like, they check a lot of the right boxes, especially, like I said, the genius offensive head coach. Yeah, I think Seattle's got a ton of young talent. Geno Smith's going to be good enough to captain them. I like Pete Carroll as a coach, so we'll go 6.
It's a good 6 seed.
I think Dallas, people can be down on Dallas, and I might not think Dallas is the most special team, but at the end of the day, they have a ton of talent.
I think they're going to have a good
Dak's
year.
A good B-plus quarterback. I worry about losing Kellen Moore, but I think they'll be fine. 11-6 is the 5 seed. Then New Orleans, Minnesota, San Francisco, and Philly as the division winners. You guys saw that with the divisional predictions. You know that we have them winning the divisions. New Orleans, I just like their quarterback situation. They have the most talented roster in that division fairly easily. Minnesota, same thing. The Niners, same thing. Same thing with Philly. Obviously, with Jalen Hurts being an MVP level player, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's pretty clear there.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of the same games. I mean, again, we can sit here and nitpick on, what team's going to win that? We both do have the Niners, though, coming out of the NFC.
Yes.
Look, I do worry about Brock Purdy over the course of a season. Can he maintain what he showed us in, 7 games or something like that? Who knows? We'll see. But it's undeniable. They have an all-pro player at every single level. Deebo Samuel for your wide receiving core. George Kittle at tight end. Trent Williams in the offensive line. Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. Talanoa Hufanga at safety. Jimmy Ward at safety. Fred Warner. Dre Greenlaw
There's
at
talent
linebacker.
Everywhere. Talent everywhere.
Bosa up front. Like, they have a first-team all-pro level player at every single level of their defense. That's of their entire team. That's unheard of. That is the best roster in football, without a doubt. Do I think Brock Purdy is going to be good enough to not crash the car? Absolutely, I think so. And I do think they get their revenge on the Eagles in the championship game.
Yeah, I was just about to say we both have the 49ers Eagles rematch in the NFC championship game there. This time I really like the 49ers. I think they have more depth. I think depth wins in the playoffs, which is going to be I don't want to say a boring playoff in the NFC, but until that final game.
Yeah, I mean, you look at our projected matchups: Niners, Giants. I don't see that being particularly close.
No.
Minnesota and Seattle. That's probably interesting, but I think it's one of those scenarios just like last year, where it's like, yes, Minnesota is the higher seed, but I don't think anybody's going to pick them going in.
No.
Like everybody had the Giants last year to beat Minnesota. Like same thing with Seattle. I think they're going to be a much better football team. And then Dallas, New Orleans. Again, same thing. New Orleans wins the division because it's a weaker division, but we all perceive Dallas as being a better football team.
I would probably take Dallas there, yeah.
And then so what? That would leave you with Seattle and the Eagles. That's not particularly close. And that would be
Eagles
Dallas,
game.
Niners. We've seen that for the last 2 years. That's not particularly close either.
No. I feel like history has a tendency to repeat itself, especially in the NFC here.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, so let's move over to the AFC. So, again, going 7-1, Pittsburgh as the 7th seed. I love what they're doing. I think the offensive line is very important. If the offensive line's good, I think they're going to be fantastic. I think they could be a 12-win team if the offensive line's good. I would then have the Dolphins at 6. Look, I don't know how many games Tua is upright, but I think he'll be upright enough for them to win 11 games. The offensive talent it's insane. It's Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, 2 good tight ends, 4 good running backs.
Insane.
And then that system with Mike McDaniels is nuts. The way they're able to run the football, pull the linebackers up, and then you have to leave 2 safeties deep for those wide receivers, so the middle of the field's wide open. It's insane. Chargers at 5, I think they have arguably the most talented quarterback in the conference. Yes, I know Mahomes is really, really good, but physical talent, Herbert's insane. Buffalo wins the division. Jags win the division. A bad division at that. Bengals win their division barely over Pittsburgh. And then Chiefs obviously winning their division.
Now, here's the thing that's telling to me. Like, when we go through and now we're looking at matchups based off the seeding.
Yeah.
Yes, there's like kind of a clear cut, like, oh, I think this team's going to win. They're a little more talented. But just being in the AFC, the pure talent is so much higher. Like, the average talent in the AFC is so much higher than the average talent from the NFC.
Oh, yeah.
I could see it going
Upsets.
either way.
Absolutely.
So many upsets here. I feel like the NFC's so cut and dry, this one can go either way.
Right. So, for example, it's Pittsburgh and Cincinnati first round. I think you have Cincinnati. I would take Pittsburgh. I really would. TJ Watt plays out of his mind against Cincinnati. Even if it's in Cincy, I don't have a problem at all with picking Pittsburgh there. I think they match up really, really well, so I'd take Pittsburgh over the Bengals. Then it'd be Dolphins and Jags. I would probably lean Jags, especially being at home.
Yeah.
Again, not super far of a travel, but I do think the Jags are a better football team. They're more consistent. And then the Chargers, Buffalo, that's a go-either-way game. I would take the Chargers. I think they're a better team. Top to bottom, I think top-end talent, Buffalo is better, but depth of roster, I think the Chargers are a better football team.
Yeah.
That would leave Pittsburgh at the Chiefs. They're not built to beat the Chiefs yet, so the Chiefs would obviously win that game. I would have Chargers, Jags. So I'd lean Chargers, but you could convince me otherwise. But I think it's pretty obvious who's coming out of the conference.
It's going to be Kansas City.
It's going to be Kansas City.
Now, we have a little bit different of a AFC Championship matchup.
Yeah, who do you have? Chiefs, Jags?
Chiefs, Jags.
Interesting. Certainly possible. I like the Jags a lot.
Well, you're Chiefs, Chargers, right?
Yeah, I'm Chiefs, Chargers. You also have the Bengals beating Pittsburgh. But nonetheless, here's the one thing. People are going to be like, oh, of course you're going to pick the Chiefs. That's the easy pick. Well, until it's proven otherwise, Nick Wright talked about this the other day.
I think
it was on The Herd.
Yes, it was on The Herd on Monday.
Yeah, and he was talking. That's right. It was Monday. You consider and tell me, oh, why don't you pick the trendy team? It's like, well, when Jordan and the Bulls were winning, you could pick a trendy team. You're going to be wrong more times than not.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm picking the best coach, the best quarterback, the best tight end, really good defense. And Mahomes is so far and away the best quarterback and the best player in football.
Yeah.
And I think Andy Reid is separating himself as far and away the best coach in football. It's like, you could sit here and tell me that you want to pick Nat Hackett and Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh to win it, but it's like, I'm going to go with so far and away the best quarterback in football. I don't want to be trendy. I want to be right.
Yes.
I want to be correct. And I feel like I'm going to be right with the Chiefs.
I 100% feel like I'm going to be right with the Chiefs. And another thing that he mentioned, which I think holds a lot of weight, and he mentioned this about Pittsburgh too, for everybody that's hating on Pittsburgh and thinking that they're going to somehow be worse than they were last year. Last year, with an unknown quarterback at the beginning of the season, You didn't even know who was starting at
Flip-flopping
quarterback.
between Mitch
going
and
back
Penny.
and forth, and a
Offensive
worse
line
offensive
play.
line and less weapons.
T.J. Watt missed 7 games.
TJ Watt missing games, and they are still able to go 9-8. And then you're going to add everything this season that we've seen come into the offseason, and you're going to tell me that they're going to be worse.
The same thing with Kansas
Doesn't make
City.
any
Kansas
sense.
City, that
In
was their rebuilding year.
In their retooling year, they won the freaking Super Bowl.
Yeah, so it's hard for me
They
to
get
believe
rid of
that
their
they-
number one weapon, move a ton of players around, renegotiate a bunch of contracts. Even Patrick Mahomes renegotiates his contract so they can free up some money. And in their retooling year, they win a Super Bowl. So you think now, after they've started to retool even further and they're getting better, and you still have the best quarterback in the game, that they are somehow going to not make the Super Bowl? That's madness.
I would tend to agree, and I'm also going to pick them to win the Super Bowl over the Niners.
Yes, I'm taking Kansas City.
I think on the biggest stage, I think Brock Purdy can get you there. I'm not sure he can win it against a Mahomes
Not
level
against
quarterback.
Mahomes, no.
I mean, for some reason, if like the Dolphins or somebody were to sneak through and somehow get to the Super Bowl, I would probably pick the Niners. But I think if it's the Chiefs, I'm going with the Chiefs. I know it's not trendy. I like to be right, not trendy. Sorry.
He's not that guy, pal.
Sorry. I like to be right, not trendy.
You make a point.
So,
So
out of the situation.
there it is. Kansas City Chiefs, the projected Super Bowl winners for this NFL season. And it will be a damn good one. I cannot wait. That's the last of the offseason stuff we have for you guys.
Guys, by the
That's it.
time you watch next week's episode, we are doing predictions next
And
week for real games
well-
that are played, one of them being the night that we release the episode.
Exactly. Next Thursday. The next episode to come out, we will have football to watch that evening. A real-life, regular season football game. I have been waiting.
Can't wait.
I have been waiting. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you're tuning in. Next week is the first week of the battle that always ensues here on the show when we start our prediction war. We are 1-1. I won the first season. Tim won the second season. We are going after it. Rubber match this year. Who's going to get the leg up going into the next couple of we're going to have? So you're going to want to stick around. Follow the show. All the social medias, all the links. You can find it in the description of the episode no matter where you're watching. It's very easy to navigate, very easy to find. TheIssueSports.com. We got a bunch of stuff over there. News about the show coming out every single week, pretty much, it feels like at this point. So never be in the dark. Go subscribe. Go follow. Guys, we really appreciate the support. And that was The Issue.